All right, folks, we have another update in the ongoing Trump-Epstein scandal. According to leaks from top Trump insiders, Trump is privately panicking about public criticism from Epstein victims about his mismanagement of the Epstein scandal. But he's also, simultaneously and cruelly, privately dismissing them and their pain out of hand as being nothing more than just politically motivated Democrats. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, Rolling Stone broke the news. And again, this comes from a handful of Trump insiders leaking information. So Trump privately dismissed Epstein victims as Democrats. The president and his administration are struggling to bury the scandal around their handling of the convicted sex offender's case. Donald Trump, Republicans in Congress, and the president's allies across right-wing media have been trying everything to make public backlash to their botched handling of the Jeffrey Epstein investigation go away, amid reports that Trump himself appears in the government's files pertaining to the convicted sex offender. And I will note that, just as a reminder, the Wall Street Journal, the conservative Wall Street Journal, broke the news that Trump was briefed back in May, by the Justice Department that his name was all over the Epstein files. And then we learned from a Bloomberg reporter who investigates a Freedom of Information Act requests, a FOIA reporter, that Trump's FBI went and redacted all of the references to Trump. So Trump knows he's in the files. He was told he was in the files, and he tasked his FBI with blacking out his name in the files, okay? The administration's attempts to bury the story have been complicated by some of Epstein's victims and their families speaking out as the scandal is intensified. Trump hasn't engaged with them, but just because the president is publicly keeping his mouth shut about Epstein's victims and their family members doesn't mean he isn't annoyed by them. In recent weeks, according to two sources familiar with his private remarks, Trump has repeatedly critiqued the string of media appearances by Epstein accusers and their families, arguing that some of them are just trying to make him look bad or implying that he did something wrong during his time as one of Epstein's friends and party companions. At times, Trump said some of the people speaking out are, in his words, clearly of a Democrat political affiliation, while wondering aloud if some of them are coordinating with prominent liberal attorneys or groups. So again, he is privately saying, oh, this must be a scandal. This must be a conspiracy. These people are they're Democrats out to get me, even though they were victimized by Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Maxwell, who's still alive, serving a 20-year conviction for sex trafficking herself, whom Trump has teased the idea of pardoning in public. He certainly hasn't dismissed it out of hand, reaffirming, I have every right to do it. And he's just saying, well, this is a coordinated conspiracy to take me down. Quote, none of this is true, a White House official said in response to a request for comment. Quote, just another desperate attempt by the failing Rolling Stone. Survivors of Epstein's abuse have for weeks now been criticizing the Trump administration's handling of the case after the Justice Department announced in early July that it would not be releasing the so-called Epstein files. The outcry intensified following reports that Epstein accomplice Ghislaine Maxwell had been transferred to a significantly cushier prison facility in Texas after the Justice Department spoke with her in Florida. Maxwell is serving a 20-year sentence after being convicted in 2021 of child sex trafficking and other offenses related to her relationship with Epstein. The Wall Street Journal reported last month that the Justice Department informed Trump that his name appeared in evidence related to Epstein's case, although it remains unclear in what capacity. Now, again, as a reminder, Maxwell has been transferred to a cushier position. She was given limited immunity. And I believe I saw, let me do this in real time, Maxwell work release. Okay, I thought I saw somewhere that Ghislaine Maxwell was released on some sort of like work release program, but I can't confirm that. So I could have just been something I saw on Twitter. But she has been treated with relative kid gloves. Okay, this is somebody that Trump wished well when she was first arrested, not convicted, but arrested on accusations of sex trafficking in his first term. So again, this doesn't look well. The fact that she was interviewed by Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, somebody who has no real business being involved in such a thing. He used to be Trump's personal attorney. So the whole thing seems shady as hell, especially with Trump not ruling out that he won't pardon her. Okay. Farmer indicated, Annie and Maria Farmer, two sisters who accused Epstein of assaulting them and testifying against Maxwell during her trial, have gone public with their criticism of the administration's sidelining of the victims. Earlier this month, Annie Farmer told CNN that this, quote, chaotic process that's been unfolding has been a real cost for survivors. Farmer indicated that the survivors had not been informed of the Justice Department's efforts to meet with Maxwell or the decision to transfer her to a minimum security prison. Quote, A central part of trauma is feeling a lack of control, and that's certainly been triggered here by these meetings. Even this prison transfer was something I expected we would learn about prior to learning about it in the news, and unfortunately, that's not how it's unfolded, she said. Farmer added that efforts by right-wing pundits and others to paint Maxwell as another Epstein victim was a ploy to make a potential commutation of Maxwell's 20-year sentence, quote, more palatable to the public. Trump hasn't ruled out pardoning Maxwell, telling reporters that he is, quote, allowed to do it. Quote, it feels like that campaign is not working. People recognize that she's a predator, not a victim, Farmer added. Last month, Danielle Bensky, who accused Epstein of abusing her in 2004, told NBC News that the approach the president and his allies have taken, quote, feels like we're being erased, end quote. Quote, all the brave women who came forward, all the work that we did to tell the world that what happened to us, it's all being erased, she said. The family of Virginia Giuffre, a victim of Epstein who died by suicide earlier this year, released a statement in response to comments from Trump indicating that he believed Epstein had, quote, stolen Giuffre from the spa at Mar-a-Lago where she had worked. Quote, if our sister could speak today, she would be most angered by the fact that the government is listening to a known perjurer, which is Maxwell, a woman who has repeatedly lied under oath and will continue to do so as long as it benefits her position, the family said. Quote, we in the public are asking for answers. Survivors deserve this. In a memo submitted to the U.S. District Court earlier this month, one victim, whose identity remains protected, wrote to a judge that while they are, quote, for complete and utter transparency in this case, we deserve transparency from our own government, the agencies that were supposed to be there to protect us victims. And guess what? They utterly and completely failed us. As a matter of fact, we did a video about this. One of those letters also included a direct criticism of Trump, saying that, Trump was more concerned, more preoccupied with redacting his known name from the Epstein files and protecting himself politically than serving justice. On Monday, Representative Thomas Massie, a frequent critic of Trump, announced that he and Representative Ro Khanna will be hosting a press conference on September 3rd with survivors of Epstein's abuse and their attorneys. It is unclear if the families will ever receive an audience with Trump or other top officials. Trump's frustrations with these accusers and relatives comes as the Trump administration shambolically tries and fails to move the public's attention away from his relationship with the convicted sex offender and his government's decision to shield its files on the case from the public. Trump is desperate to talk about literally anything else, to the point that he is reviving unfounded theories about the investigation into Russian meddling in the 2016 election, while telling his Justice Department to, quote, go after President Obama and other political enemies. Yes, exactly. He has been panicking. And listen, we're not hearing as much about the Epstein files in the past week or so just because there are no new developments on which to report. Although I will point out, and we'll play a bit of this, that the K file, which is part of CNN, has put together, like both in written form, I'll show you that right now, a comprehensive timeline of Trump and Epstein's relationship, a visual timeline. Andrew Kaczynski and others worked on this as well. It's very well cited, very well annotated. It includes quotes and pictures and screenshots and video footage. I mean, it is as thorough as it gets. We'll play a bit of Kaczynski talking about this on CNN, about this K-file report, giving his audience, basically the most complete timeline and comprehensive timeline of Trump's relationship with Epstein.
A K-file, in-depth CNN investigation. Donald Trump has long claimed that he was no fan of Jeffrey Epstein. But K-file's extensive reporting now shows the two shared a close social circle for nearly 2 decades, from private jet flights to high-profile parties, and that's only part of the story. Photos, flight logs, and court records help reveal how long their personal history really was. K-file's Andrew Kaczynski is here with all of that. And it is some extensive research and reporting that you all did. You've chronicled this relationship between Trump and Epstein from the 80s to mid-2000s is obviously when their contact probably cut off. What's the most striking thing that you find that kind of contradicts this? Donald Trump is no fan of Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah, so what we found, it really actually paints a portrait starting, as you said, in the 1980s up to the mid-2000s. It paints this portrait of a long, enduring friendship. I think there were several associates who have called them best friends. Epstein himself said that he was Donald Trump's closest friend for 10 years. And we looked through these hundreds of hours of video, hundreds of photos. We went through documents from court files, exhibits from lawsuits. So we really chronicled this whole relationship through time. And one thing that I found really interesting was these flight logs from Epstein's private jet. which were part of that investigation into Ghislaine Maxwell. And they really tell you a story of how close these guys are. Look at just a few of them. This is in 1993, for instance. This is the same year that we found as well that Jeffrey Epstein attended Donald Trump's wedding to Marla Maples. Trump flew on that plane 4 times with Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell between Palm Beach, where Mar-a-Lago is, and where Epstein also owns a home. Let's fast forward then to 1994. Trump flew from Palm Beach to Washington, D.C. with his then wife, Marla Maples, his daughter, Tiffany, and a nanny before they returned to New Jersey that.
So, and again, it goes on like this. You should definitely check out the visual timeline. Again, it answers a lot of questions. It's a good reference point. We'll continue to follow the scandal as developments unfold. But yeah, Donald Trump, just basically poo-pooing the concerns and the criticism of Epstein victims out of hand, indicates, again, he's panicking about this. He's well aware that this is penetrative and potentially politically disastrous. Again, it's gone quiet in the last couple of days, but that's because there's been very little to report by way of new evidence. And I will point out that Donald Trump could snap his fingers today and order the release of the Epstein files as we know it, which is what he promised his supporters. He is declining to do so. Don't let him move the goalpost, and don't let him change the standard. Don't let him distract you. We have to talk about other things because there's a lot going on, but don't allow this to fade into memory. Donald Trump fears the Epstein scandal more than he has feared any other scandal, with the possible exception of the lawsuits against him in January 6th, right? Because he recognizes that this is something that even causes nominal supporters of his in the MAGA base to at least give it a second look, okay? There you have it. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.